Доброе утро, уважаемые участники, зрители
Good morning,
международных.
dear participants, dear audience at our event, International Investors Week. And we start our online webinar, Online Investing. My name is Almaz Zhalmonov, and I am the moderator of today's session. First, I would like to have some technical announcement. All the questions could be asked through our chat functions. We will gather all the questions and we will provide answers at the end of the webinar. You also can have the interpretation into Russian or Kazakh language. You can choose the globe sign at the Zoom panel. Today, we have two speakers at our webinar from the Astana Financial Services Authority. Let me introduce them. We have Yelzhan Ussibali, who is the Director of Department on Capital Market of Astana Financial Services Authority of the AFSA. Yelzhan has more than 17 years of experience in financial system of Kazakhstan. Previously, he worked in the President's administration, where he was responsible for the financial system monitoring, AFSA activity, Samruk Kazina, Bayterek, National Fund, Eurasian Economic Union. He was responsible for interaction with international financial institutions. He has been dealing with the monetary and credit policy and so on. He also has worked in the National Bank of Kazakhstan in the divisions of bank supervision and supervision over securities. He also had the experience of working in such broker company as Future Capital, KAIFS, and in some other places. He also was a lecturer at Kazakh Economic University for the master's degree student. He has a bachelor's degree in exchange market in Kazakhstan and also the master's degree of political management of George Washington University. The second speaker is Yerkegali Yedenbayev, who is the director of Financial Regulation Department of Astana Financial Services Authority in the AFSA. Yerkegali has been working since May 2019, and he is a professional head with a great experience. He was at the position of the word in financial sector. Over 12 years, he has experience in positions of different financial regulations in Kazakhstan. Today, we are discussing the online investing, and here during the webinar, our speaker will tell us about online investing. Is it something new, or here we're speaking about traditional methods, but they are just being implemented through the internet? We have lots of questions and questions about risks. Are our providers of financial services protected? And lots of other questions. And we hope that during our presentation today, we will receive all the answers. So now I would like to give the floor to Yelzhan Ussibali, to our first speaker, who will tell us about the online investment in the context of simplification of access to the market, to capital market. Yelzhan, please, the floor is yours. Hello, Almaz. Hello, dear audience. Can we please have my slides? Today, I'm going to speak about online investing. I will speak about pluses and minuses of online trade and how to be safe when you do online trading. As you know, Internet plays an important role in the life of any person, almost everywhere. We need internet not only for work, but also for paying some services. The internet saves our time. And, speaking about online training, it is also now the great tool, and it simplifies the access to the capital, and there are lots of advantages. But let us first speak about online investing. What is it? It's the way of trading. We place orders for purchase or for selling through internet at the sites of the brokers. Online investing is now getting growth, or is growing not only in Kazakhstan but all over the world. And every day we see new investors that are engaged into the capital market. But here we have to remember that the virtual world is not safe one, and there are lots of threats. So let us now talk about advantages and disadvantages of online investing. Our next slide shows you the list of strengths or pluses or good points. First, there is no need of physical contact with a broker. Trading does not require physical contact with broker. You don't have to go to the office. Quite often the phone in the office is busy, the line is busy, and sometimes it takes some time to get services. For example, let's say that you made a call to X company and you are speaking with a robot, with a machine that will slowly connect you with the manager. And he will suggest you to press some buttons to receive some kind of services. For example, if you want to have the service in Russian language, press 1. If you are our current investor, press this button. If you are potential investor, something else. So, it irritates people. But nowadays, investors can place their orders through mobile application or through the computer. It provides the opportunity to place your request for purchase, and it saves your time. The other advantage, Mr. Yelzhan, could you please, yes, we have the weak sound. Could you please have the microphone closer? The next advantage is the exchange market availability. They are open 24/7, and that's why investor can work in any comfortable time. You can work from home at any time that you want. Online trading could be your part-time activity. You can place your order, in the non-working hours. The next advantage is that these are paperless operations. You don't have to sign your request. You don't have to bring it to your broker or to send it to broker by fax, by email. Now all the reports on these transactions and all the accounting documents are also submitted in an electronic way, and it is all could be done through your personal account or through your mobile application. One of the obvious advantage is the decrease of the fees if we go to the traditional companies. There was a survey, but it was conducted at the American market. However, there is one concept, and the fees in online trading, they are cheaper than during the traditional way of servicing. And as it could be understood, there is no expense for the labor force. The investor could also invest and sell with a broad range of securities and work with different exchange platforms where providers have access to. So here we see the range of different tools. You can look the information about the companies, about securities in the real time, and you can see the changes every minute. You also can see the historic fluctuation of the price of indices, of different charts on each security. You can control it each time when you see or feel that it is not in your interest. You need just to follow the trends on the market and fix or set stop loss, so you can there are different recommendations from experts on investments. Brokers has the opportunity to avoid some objectivity. Sometimes the broker could provide some advice that would be beneficial for broker, for example, during the selling of securities or in some other cases. The next advantage is the easy input and withdrawal of your money. You can transfer your money from your bank account there, and you can withdraw it quite easily. You can check the details of your transactions in this account, and it's a comfortable function. You can receive the experience of the optimum transactions for future. So these are advantages, but as we all know, any coin has two sides. So the same is here. Online trading has its own disadvantages. First is the absence of contact with broker, and sometimes there is no adequate advice, and if there is no adequate advice, it could result in some losses. Online traders, they are kind of independent, but for some people, such independence could be harmful. For example, when we are traditional market and when the security price is growing, each decision might bring the profits. But sometimes when there are some other fluctuations, it's difficult to come to the benefit. And that's why you need to know more about the company that you are going to invest to. But I will tell about it a bit later. Then the exciting features. This is the disadvantage. You know, the gambling and online trading, they are close to each other. Sometimes the online traders, they have the satisfaction and joy, and they get into it, get involved too much. And sometimes they make some risky decisions just because of this euphoria, let's say. They want to get a lot of profit, but sometimes they receive losses. And sometimes online investing could lead to the dependency or to the addiction. So that's why here a person have to be emotionally stable. The nature of online trading means that you are under the internet power and under the internet rate. If the internet speed is quite slow, you can lose the potential transaction, potentially profitable transaction. Online investors shall have the stable internet connection during the whole purchasing and selling and other operation processes. Some technical errors could lead to the errors, and that means losses. There could be some other similar problems with the low computers or low functioning smartphones. Technical mistakes and errors. Online trading requires lots of attention. You can make very easy mistake. You can do this transaction in some seconds. You just need to press the button. Some people who make quick decisions, they don't think about the consequences of such dealings, and again, in the end, they might lose an amount of money, big amount of money. You have to follow the situation and check the situation in advance. When you do online trading, sometimes it could cost you a lot of money. For example, investors that thought that transaction was not finished could finish or make this deal transaction again, and that means they invest twice more than they planned before. If you place your order, you have to be sure that this is confirmed. And if you want to cancel, make sure that you cancel it for sure before you start the next transaction. Online trading is one of profitable types of activity, but again, the more money here, the more profits, the more risk here that could be seen. And again, sometimes it's difficult to control your emotions when we see the large fluctuation in the market. So the fear and the patience, they are the main factors here. Investors that are selling online, they need to understand that the opportunity of fast request do not guarantee that this request will be executed faster rather than we do it by the traditional way. Sometimes, there are some uncertainties about the price of the market. And, the price is fluctuating so fast that maybe by the end of making a deal by the broker, the price could be different from that price that was suggested for the investor when he was placing his request or order. And so sometimes it's better to adjust a limit of order So it's a specific order that you sell or buy for a specific price. For example, you just give kind of instructions that you will not buy or you will not sell lower or higher than this threshold. So such orders would support you, suggest the support if there are some strong fluctuation in the market. And the last thing is the fraud. Taking into account the growing popularity in online investing, the fraudsters will not miss any opportunities. And sometimes new investors might get into different fraud schemes, fraud investments. First, the fraudsters want to receive the trust to get into relationship with the investors, and then they disappear with a big amount of money, investors' money. When you choose online platform, first of all, you have to check the license for the providers of this platform for the activities at this exchange market. Sometimes there were lots of cases when unlicensed companies provided brokers activities. You need to check all these documents. And of course, our law enforcement agency, jointly with the regulating authorities, they are checking all these activities. Sometimes they receive licenses without regulator bodies. The list of companies that could do these activities at the AFSA are listed in a specific register at our site, AFSA.kz. You can also check some other parameters of those company or firms, for example, the tools, the fees, the requirements for the first deposit, and so on. And the most important, you need to check if the investor or you could be protected with your rights. Now, let us move to a more positive slide. Online trading, online transactions, they are simple, they are fast, but online investing, I mean the making of thoughtful decision, requires time. If you remember, one of the first disadvantages is that you might not know all the information about the company that you invest in. You need to take the required time to study the situation with this company. Unfortunately, the absence of the habit of careful thinking, of getting new knowledge, is a bad habit, and we see the growing number of such people who do not want to find right information. So some internet can provide some good information if you are careful and if you can dedicate time to study the situation. Internet is good to provide the information on the market capitalization on the market. And, several years ago, such information could be given only to some people who would pay for that. And now, using internet, you can receive it fast and without any payment. So the investor shall pay attention at the following things. First, market capitalization. We're speaking about volatility of the shares. For example, the large capital companies, they have more stable income and they have less volatile situation. The companies with and low capitalization might have more volatility in the price of the shares and so on. Financial indicators.
And it's better to start with the net profit and revenue. You need to be aware about the tendencies in the last 2 years. And now when you have an understanding of how big the company is and how much money it makes, you can assess, you can study the sector in which it operates. And speaking of the management and the company owners study, is it still managed by the same people who founded it, because the new companies, the young companies, they tend to have more founding members. But if it's a company with a spectacular background, track record, and it still has founding members, it's a good sign. So you need to pay attention to who manages the company, look at their CV, at their background, what is their expertise in the field. And you need to look at the shares they have. You need to assess their personal accountability. If it's high, it's a good sign. If it's low, it's a bad sign. You also you need to look at the history of securities prices. It's also important how long the securities have been trading, the movement in price, whether prices have been volatile and unstable. You can make your own analysis and what was the average revenue in the previous periods and what could impact the future movement and prices of securities, and the company forecast in terms of the revenue. It is indeed a very useful thing to do. You need to do the forecasting for the next 2-3 years. What are the long-term trends? You need to look at the data about the current and future partnerships or forecasted joint ventures. It's also good to check how accurate were the previous forecasts. You can do it by studying the forecast for the last two and by comparing them with the current situation, with the current data. And also you need to look at the risks. It's important to understand what are the sectoral risks. Are there any unresolved legal issues? The currency exchange risk. It will help you to reduce the negative impacts, and the more informed the investor, the higher the quality of his investments. Let's go to the next slide. And you can see the number of so-called golden rules. Rule number 1 is you need to select a good broker with a good reputation, with a good track record. You need to be able to control your emotions. It is also important. As I said previously, the markets may be volatile and it may impact our emotional well-being. You need to invest in reliable and verified tools. You need to assess your risk appetite. You need to study, you need to do some research, you need to do some study before you actually start trading. You need to look at the documents, you need to look at the reports. Also, you need to have a good strategy, good trading strategy. You can make some money, you can be profitable if you know the information. Don't gamble, don't become too emotional by trying to make a lot of money quickly. You also need to be informed about the situation on your trading accounts, on your challenge. If you see any problems, it gives you any issues, please contact your broker immediately. And the last thing, you need to diversify your investment. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put all your money in one security. Diversification allows you to optimize your investment and to reduce your losses. And as a conclusion, I want to tell you that internet has revolutionized the online trading systems and the broker services. The online brokerage and activities changed the game by providing them access to vast information and by allowing to trade faster. Online trading hasn't changed the obligation of brokers of being fair and honest with clients. The requirements for the brokers doesn't change from the traditional brokers. It's even there is even more attention paid to the safety and security of the client money. So we can say that the advantages of trading prevail over the disadvantages. And the online trading can be a source of good income if you follow the above advice and recommendations. I think that's it from my side. Thank you for your attention. Yes, thank you for very informative presentation and with the very fundamental recommendations and insights. We should also say that here in AIFC we are very serious and strict about exchanging the private data. These rules are similar to the European rules in the field of information exchange. When you exchange the personal data, you have an obligation to protect this personal data. I think we are going to talk next about the consumer protection, and Yerkegali Yedenbayev is our next speaker. Please, Yerkegali, the floor is yours. Good afternoon. We can start. As the previous speaker said, that we now are going to talk about the consumer protection in online investing. So this is the trend.
Особенно он получил свое развитие в период.
And this is the trend that was dominant during the pandemic period. You can see some data, statistical data. This is the chart on downloads trading apps in the US over the past years and by the beginning of first year. And the Robinhood app, its app has been downloaded about 9 million times last year, and according to the Credit Suisse, starting from the end of 2019, the amount or the volume of retail trading has reached 30%, so it has doubled within 1 year or so. But I wanted to tell you about some other aspects. The technologies are indeed making it accessible and easy, the trading, but we should be able to differentiate the trading and investment. Investment, I think, and I recommend to have the same view. Investment is more complex, is more complicated process. First of all, I would like to draw your attention to to the investment institution. It's just part of our lives. It's part of life for everyone. It's how you manage your personal finance, and you need to differentiate that there is a trading that is now becoming more accessible, easier, and there is a investment decision making which still remains to be time consuming, which still remains to be complex and more difficult, and it requires you to be aware of a lot of the information. But I think that it's never bad to repeat or remind that. And online trading typically means that the investor independently makes a decision and bears the responsibility for these decisions. And like any adult, you need to understand that decision, and you need to compare it with your needs. You need to ask yourself several questions, and you need to honestly answer those questions. So each investor needs to determine the amount of money for investment. It doesn't have to be an absolute amount. It could be different. It's obviously going to be different for different people. So you could. And the second issue is the goal, the purpose of your investments. What is your goal? Is it to increase whether you want to become a millionaire quickly within an hour or a day? So you need to set your goal. And also another important issue or aspect is the period of investment. The longer the period, the higher the risk that you can take, and the clearer certain aspects become. And I will talk about this further. And each investor shall determine their acceptable of risk is because you always need to compare your risk level with the amount of profit or profitability. And the next stage, stage 2, is studying and selecting financial instruments. There are many aspects, and I'm just going to be very brief. First of all, it is, of course, financial literacy, so that you can understand the different types of financial instruments like shares, bonds, securities, options, and other derivatives, for example. In addition to understanding the nature, you should also try to imagine the optimal set of financial instruments. And here first of all, you need to invest. You can invest in debt instruments or equity instruments. By utilizing these three types of instruments, you need to you need to develop your own strategy based on your needs and goals. So, and you need to determine your own set of financial instruments. It is important, it is very important to understand it when you have identified the period of investment. It also impacts the selection of financial instruments, and of course the selection of financial instruments will be impacted by the level of risk that you are willing to take. How are you going to do this? If your period of investment is between 30 and 40 years, you're relatively young, you can invest in more risky instruments, and there are some studies that tells that when you're young, you tend to invest in you tend to make riskier investment. And as the period of investment reduces, it would be smart to reduce the level of investment risk, and maybe you need to prioritize other types of investments such as the equity instruments, and it's one of the examples. And when you talk about selecting financial instruments, you also need to bear in mind that you should always diversify. You need to choose definitely not just one financial instrument. It definitely has to be a set of financial instruments. The wider the set of instruments, based on your financial capabilities, the better. Typically, the profitability of shares or obligations are quite opposite. So we cannot say that there is a proportion. There is a dependence or link between the shares in different sectors of economy. There are so-called protected economic sectors that even during the crisis they pay dividends to their investors due to the stable price or share. So the stage 2 is selecting and studying the financial instruments. It is a work that you will need to do independently by yourself, or if opportunity, you can use the financial services provider, professional provider. This is very important before you select your online trading platform or application.
So first of all, you need to study all these offers that exist at the market, and then to make a choice and choose not only best technologies or because of its best interface. You need to choose the services of providers. As my colleague has already mentioned, you need to ask several questions to yourself. It should be like a research. So the questions should be the following. The licenses that this provider has, then is there any regulating board agency that regulates the activities? Then you need to think about and study the information regarding the sanctions. Some of financial regulating bodies, they practice publication of the list of not fair providers, and you need to address to all these information sources so that to make the right choice. Besides, what also important is when you study this information, you will have the understanding of who you shall address to. I mean, the financial regulator, who that you will address if the provider will provide non-adequate services. And you need to realize and understand all these issues. What else I would like to note? Maybe again, repeat these words again and again, but before going to the questions of the consumer rights protection, I would like to pay your attention to the fact that online investing is more than online trading. It implies the responsibility of the investor. It implies the fact that you have to study a lot of material and situation, and financial regulator will help you here because financial regulator will require the provider and will require from the authors of financial tools to have a better information disclosure so that you would make your thoughtful choice regarding investment decision. I also want to emphasize that investing is just the part of your financial planning or the part of your personal finances, and you need to understand it clearly. As for the information on providers of financial services, as my colleague has just mentioned, you can learn this information at different information sources, financial regulators. You need to understand here that the range of services is different. Online broker could be the same one, but you could use also the services of investment consultants or investment advisories. This is already the other license, and it could be the other provider of financial services. It's possible. I think you need to address such services at the initial investing stage, or maybe when you are not able, even if you have studied all this available information, you cannot make the investment decision. Such advisors will help you, support you. We have the whole pool of professional services, professional financial services. Besides, as my colleague has already covered it fully in his speech, the financial regulator requires to disclose the information fully from the authors. We are speaking about prospects, about offering materials. They also have to be studied. Such documents have to be examined so that to understand the nature of financial tools, because many financial tools have lots of details, and such details are important. It's like in the life. It is important, for making the decision, you are required to examine the maximum amount of information. Now, I would like to speak about some issues where the financial regulators can assist you. First of all, what the financial regulator requires from online brokers or providers. The providers of financial services need to know well the needs and limitations of their clients, and they are obliged to submit to these clients the services and financial tools that would be suitable for these clients. So there could be different tests. For example, when you open the account for online trading, you fill in the questionnaire, and the result of this questionnaire shall lead providers to some specific conclusions regarding type of where you as investor could be classified to, and then the tools that would be most suitable for you as investor. So you have to answer all those questions that we have mentioned before. So these questions were not only to you, but these questions will also be asked from online broker to you. And again, you have to answer all these questions fairly to the best way, and then the provider will make some specific conclusion, and based on this conclusion, you will be suggested the most suitable tools. And this is one of the requirements of the regulator, and with each year, such rules are getting more stricter, much stricter. The second thing is that investment solutions or decisions are made by investors on the basis of the maximum available objective information. So we are speaking about the disclosure of financial services. So we are speaking about full disclosure on financial products and so on and so forth. And in the end, the financial regulator shall be ensured, and we already have the infrastructure. So the consumers of financial services may address for the information or with the complaint to the providers of financial services. So there should be some specific policies and procedures on complaints consideration, and this is a requirement from AFSA, the AFSA, and in any case you can address to financial regulator. There is a specific section called complaints. You can find the information on this side of our facility. So we provide our clients such opportunity. So I think that's it from my side. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope that I was useful today to our audience. Let me say that many recommendations that regulator are paying attention to, I mean, for example, when we speak about check the license, all these questions, they come from the key recommendations from IOSCO, from the Security Commission. You know, this is a set of specific recommendations and standards. And, you know, I think this is the basic information. This is the first step for self-education, for financial literacy. Well, now I think we shall move to our Q&A session. We have 5-6 minutes. So there is a question from one of the participants. Yelzhan, I think the question is to you. The question is, what online brokers could you recommend? So, you know, regulators shall not recommend any specific brokers, including online brokers. But I want to give again recommendation, which will be similar, which will repeat some ideas of our previous speeches. First of all, you have to pay attention at licenses, at reputation of these brokers companies. Okay. Thank you, Yelzhan. And there is also the second question. I think the question is more to you. The question is, in economically developed countries, there are so-called compensation funds that are regulated by the state, which guarantee to investors the payment of a specific amount of money in case of fraud from the issuer's side and in case of its bankruptcy. Are there any plans about the implementation of such funds for investors in Kazakhstan? Yes, in the global practice, there are such institutes and their activities are quite efficient. But here we need to mention that some other international centers, they do not have such, international financial centers, they do not have such institutes. But sometimes, and in general, we study all the global practices, we implement them here in our facility, we are studying the global experience. But before applying such global practices, we need to understand the specifics of our jurisdiction and the structure of economy where such jurisdictions are functioning. As for the implementation of this, the implementation of or establishment of new institutes in Kazakhstan, we are open to the dialogue with our colleagues from financial regulator of Kazakhstan, from the National Bank, and sometimes we could fulfill some recommendations. Thank you, Yelzhan. Next question, I think I will ask Yerkegali. Yerkegali, tell us, please, what advice would you give to the beginning investor, the new investor? Well, first of all, in financial literacy, to enhance it, to read more. And the second recommendation, to invest, including online investing. And then the other question to you, how we can identify a non-fair investment company. There are some express tests, they exist, and one of the main signs we have already said, and we always will say about it, the availability, the presence or the absence of license. So if there is no, it means that the company is probably the fraud company and the fraud scheme. The second important sign, this is about investment business, about traders. Almost all global regulators, they forbid investment company to guarantee any returns. The only information that you can have so that to make your thoughtful decision is the numbers or the indicators of the previous returns. If you can see some kind of, let's say, announcement or information that your investments will bring you this number of annual or monthly returns, so with most probabilities, these are not fair companies, or these are probably fraud companies. Yes, this is like the red flag. Yes, somebody guarantees you the return. So, yes. Speaking about online investing, we have lots of other brokers, including foreign brokers. So, Yelzhan, do we have the regulation of some brokers platform as Just to Trade and some other? Can AFSA as regulator protect the rights of consumers? Such platforms, they are not within the jurisdiction of the AFSA. That's why AFSA, the Astana Financial Services Authorities, do not regulate the activities and cannot protect the users of such platforms. Again, when you work with this platform, it's better to check the license, and you have to be sure. You have to be sure about the protection of your rights when you use the services of such platforms. Okay, thank you so much, Yelzhan. Well, there are no other questions from our audience, and I think we have discussed and covered all the topics. Of course, we cannot cover everything over this short time, but I hope that it was interesting information material for our audience, and we are always ready to answer all your questions. So if you have any question, you can send your questions through our chat, and we will provide you the reply. So with this, we finish our session, and I would like to thank our speakers, Mr. Yelzhan, Ussibali, and Yerkegali Yedenbayev, for your presentation, for your time, and for such interesting content. I would like to thank the participants of our World Investors Week. And before we finish our session, I would like to say that our next event will be at 11 o'clock. We have the streaming in our Instagram account, Astana International Exchange. It will be dedicated to Tabas mobile application, and then at 12 o'clock at noon here in Zoom for registered participants, so we will have the Green Investment Principles for Belt and Road. It will be our webinar. So with this, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you again in some minutes at other different channels. Thank you.
AIFC Academy of Law is a unique legal education platform that provides trainings on AIFC law and international commercial practice. By collaborating with world-class institutions, Academy prepares students, lawyers, business professionals, and judges to work in AIFC and other international financial centers. The Academy also